Hello, Evgeny.
Hi, Kristina.
Great to see you
How
as
are you today?
usual. Yes,
Hmm.
I'm doing very well, thank you. I went to a karate training session with the state team, and caught up with some people who I haven't seen for about a year, some of them, and it's just great to
Hmm.
see the season kick off. So I'm feeling refreshed for them, and yeah, it put me in a good mood. And yourself, how are you?
That's sweet. Yeah, I'm quite good too, thank you. I was out today, went for a bit of a run through the city, as I occasionally do, even though it's middle of February and it's cold. But it was nice, very, very refreshing. Quite hard too. That's good.
Mhm.
So
So
today we are going to carry on chatting about rest, picking up where we left off last time.
we started, how did we start last week?
We started somehow. I think it was about the difference between rest and escapism through the six senses.
Yes, that's right. Yes. We covered quite a few topics last week, and yeah, one of them was around escapism and the ongoing disruption to the nervous system where it's never where as we engage with our devices or other distractions, that doesn't really bring us the deep rest that we need to restore the body and mind. And I think we also spoke a little bit about purification practices. Somehow we touched on those because we also talked about how when we have this emotional unrest or this disruption in our system, whether it be from being overly excited, overly stimulated, to also having and we connected that with ethical practices and morality
Yeah, yeah,
around why it's beneficial for us to cultivate an attitude of benevolence and a good heart, and why that is also conducive to rest.
yeah, absolutely. Like I mentioned last time, it's creates the conducive environment to be inside, because that's where we rest. We don't
That's
rest in
right.
the thoughts or entertainment things or devices that we watch or consume. One can rest inside when the faculties of body and mind are stilled, such
Mm.
that none of them can consume energy, such that energy can restore. I think we stopped at where what actually takes place in terms of energetic mechanics of rest.
And that's what we'd like
Perhaps
to talk more
today,
about today.
yeah, and we could also perhaps touch about sort of more mundane, conventional aspects of rest, such as how to organize one's life in a way conducive for resting, notwithstanding the energetics.
Oh, well, if you have any tips on that, I'm always open because I feel like that area needs a lot of improvement for me. But yes, today I'm super keen to delve deeper into the energetics of rest and also the
Mm.
theory around how the energetics of rest is talked about in which system are we discussing?
Well, primarily the Qigong I practice is from Chuanzhen, lineage of Taoism and
Mhm.
Longman tradition uh, of that lineage, Longman Dragon Gate sect. But that really doesn't matter to me. What are they? The names, people drop names, whatever. As long as there is the correct system, which doesn't use fabricated principles such as, visualizing things or imagining the outcomes, but actual real bodily, somatic, energetic mechanics,
Mhm.
it works. It will produce results which are real, as opposed to a system that uses imaginary means and therefore produces imaginary results.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, I guess I was just more talking about, what type of modality are we discussing now? Like if we're talking about energetics of rest, so to speak, we're referring to sinew changing processes, like they belong to the Qigong system within the Eastern internal arts, like in a more, broad sense, right?
Yeah, sinew changing is just another way to speak about bodily transformation. Today, I was
Mm.
actually going to touch on the microcosmic orbit as another
Mm.
conceptual modality, because it kind of is easier to talk about energetics of rest through the lens of that model.
Oh, great. Well, please do.
Well, and it's not necessarily, the model, it's also the principles which are inherent in our energetic anatomy and the aspects of physiology that are there already. Like everybody knows about vagus nerve these days, and there is a lot of talk and
Mm.
hype about how do we access the parasympathetic innervation and enter the state of rest and digest. And so people talk about these methods and those methods and even substances that they engage with. So it would be beneficial, I think, to actually look into what are stress states and what are rest states, and they depend on two different uh, systems within the body, sympathetic and parasympathetic, and correspondingly with those on two different channels, governing channel or do channel and conception channel or REM channel, which are involved into the states of fight or flight, and that's respectively do channel and all the innervation along the back, um, particularly the thoracic and lumbar areas, from where the energy is delivered to the organs through the delivery points or shoe points, as they're known within the Chinese medicine. And within the RAN channel system, we talk about different innervation, the parasympathetic innervation, which has to do mostly with cervical, and a little bit of that is area around the sacrum. And RAN channel also has aspects which are not directly corresponding to nervous system, the areas of innervation, and more
Sorry,
so
what
than
was that
the do
last one?
channel. I said that the RAN channel has aspects which do not necessarily have correspondences with the anatomical regions and the areas of nervous system, which more have to do with the state of one's mind. So normally when people, what I find or what I observe, when people talk about calm, they don't necessarily speak about the rest and digest proper, but they rather speak about the lessened fight or flight state. So fight or flight state depends on the activation of do channel, the channel which runs along the back, and anybody who has some idea of what is governing channel or actually bladder channel as well, which runs alongside the same pathway, will understand what are these channels about. They deliver electrical impulses through the nerves into the spine, into the brain, and into the organs, causing the body to function at the higher level to fight or flight, to deal with things or to escape. So it's a highly charged area which enables us to function. And a lot of the time when we feel agitated, stressed, heightened, hyper, uh, or even like excited or mentally engaged, like I'm interested in this, or this is so exciting, that kind of stuff. All of that is do channel. A lot of energy shoots up through the spine and enters the brain and makes us animated, and it's like we have just finished a cup of morning coffee and ready to face the world kind of channel. And that's a sort of state which most of the people live in all the time. And when this state lessens to some degree, in comparison with the previous state of excitation and engagement, it feels, but it's not necessarily the calm and the restfulness that are needed for restorative purposes and for the purposes of building energy, producing more energy. Like two channel is like kind of like a quick hit, coffee hit or sugar hit or energy hit. You can sort of activate yourself into it. You do some focused mental activity for a while, focusing on the task, boom, energy will shoot up, you become awake. Or you do, I don't know, physically intense practice or exercise. I will do similar. It will fire you up, it will engage the body. Once that peak drops or subsides, someone drops into a state which is in comparison mm, more chilled. But that's not a rest state proper. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. So what I understand so far is that the Ren and the Do channel are associated with fight or flight, and that for most people, they're almost always activated. Is that right?
Do channel, not run channel.
Oh, I see. So the Do channel is associated with fight or flight. And th this channel, actually, sorry, um, not only is it activated through the nervous system, through like the fight or flight response, it's also can be activated. It also can be activated through exercise and some other forms of physical activity.
Yes, yes. Anything that initiates the flow of energy up through your nerves into the brain, wakes
Mm,
you up, makes you enlivened and excited, is the form of do channel
right.
uh, activity.
Hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
To put it very simply and in a blunt kind of way, very rudimentary. Uh,
Hmm.
so we also have then the rest and digest proper. And what I'm saying is that for majority of people that is rarely accessed or forgotten entirely. Well, the way human beings are and the way human becoming is that more and more we went to the process of self-creation. The more we identify with our thoughts, emotions, our states of being, the more we end up constantly being hyped up or engaged in some way. Uh, so that connection of actual rest of the mind is forgotten, it's lost.
Mm.
Most
Not to
of the
mention,
activities, yes, what is it?
sorry. I was just going to say, not to mention, people probably think about that and they think, oh gosh, why would I want to be in that state? It's so boring, right? It's not as attractive as the other.
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry,
Until
please
the health
continue.
collapses.
Exactly. Until the wheels are falling off the car and they're like, oh shit. I mean, oh no, I have to do something about my mental health. I'm constantly activated. Anyway, so you were saying,
Yeah, what I'm saying that there are mostly two modes of being for quite a lot of people, myself included. Back in the days, less so. These days, one is stress, another is escapism. So there is oscillation between the two, where you're engaged, you're doing something, you are working, and then you disappear into some Netflix or whatever. So you zone out, and then you kind of switch the mode of sensory stimulation to your brain. But you're still on the do channel, you're still on fight or flight, just in a lessened, less, intense state. You're not out of it. You're still in it. Yes. So literally rest proper never happens. So what I'm saying is that actual rest is difficult, and to a large extent quite lost. Before I go on with that, do you have any reflections?
yes, I do. Well, I guess, I'm doing another course where we're learning a little bit about we have a resilience zone as people, and we know when we're in this zone, we feel that like we're kind of regulated, we can remain calm, we feel connected with the person that we're interacting with and also with the world. We have a sense of our awareness is like a little bit more panoramic, so we're able to see, a bigger picture. And then we kind of notice, like in the body, when we're being pushed out of this zone of being okay or this resilient zone, because we know you can notice that like suddenly your attention becomes more sort of less panoramic, like more kind of myopic or focused. In terms of physical sensations, like the body starts to maybe heat up. There's like constriction in different parts of the body depending on an individual. Like it could be that like your throat starts feeling like it's tightening, your chest might be tightening, your hands might be getting sweaty. So there are these kind of responses once we're being activated in this fight or flight. And I was just thinking that when you deal with children, with like to teach children about this emotional response, like because that's the beginning of an emotional response, I would suggest, because you're entering into fight or flight and you're about to either let go of emotions or or repress them, I would suggest. And both of these responses are kind of not so healthy. So yeah, so I'm really keen to hear what you would like to talk about next in terms of resting and digesting. And because the way that we're learning about how to teach children how to deal with it is through like, like strategies for bringing them back into the zone, which are all inherently connected with the body in some way. So I'm really keen to hear like more of the theory from Qigong around how to activate um, rest and digest proper.
Yeah, good point. That's exactly how actually many adults function. They are either
Yeah.
suppressing the emotions, so they act out of their emotions or react to the emotions in some other way, and building their personality on the basis of emotion. That's all do channel mode of functionality, if we translate it into Qigong terms. Stress is pretty much equivalent to do channel
Right.
in these terms. So, friend channel, yeah, hard. It's very actually easy in terms of like Qigong practice to activate Du channel. It's easy to mobilize qis and send it into the spine and to the nerves and open the body, animate the body, which also takes its place. Within the practice, one needs to do that to be able to mobilize qi to bring about the vitality. And a lot of majority actually Qigong systems are concerned with that. From what I see, or from what you can see looking at the videos on YouTube, people do that. Some moving exercises, some kind of circulation or whatever. All of that is do channel. All of that is activation, yang, animation of the body. Red channel is more difficult because it has to do with yin qi, the form giving qi. There is a lot of actually confusion online from what I've seen. People associate yin with the quietness and the feminine and whatever. But actually, classically, yin is considered form, the substance, the field, whereas yang is life, the animation, the electricity within this field. To develop field like quality or get in touch with that is harder because it does not rely on the physical means alone. Like Du channel can be activated, like I said, through Qigong exercises or physical activity or through strong mental activity, which is easy to do. People know how to focus. Any school education teaches you how to focus.
Mm.
Hardly any, perhaps the modality that you're studying does teach how to actually regulate and stay in the calm uh, and develop calm. But that's exactly what yin field is concerned with. We are learning how to develop calm, not based on emotions, because you can be emotionally calm, but your energy is still high. You're still in the fight or flight. As soon as something triggers you, that calm is gone. And not based on any idea. You may have a good understanding of how to regulate yourself. But again, something hits the fan, and that idea is nigh on useless. It needs to be based on actual energetic substance, the yin qi, the field which is first of all built in the abdomen in any qigong system which is authentic, I would say. Any qigong system which understands that it is necessary to balance yang qi building and mobilizing with the yin field development so that she can sink uh, and anchor. So it drops away from the head, from the heart to the abdomen. That's where it needs to build first that field so that one can A, use it as an anchor for any excess. So that if one mobilizes a lot of yang qi, it can anchor back there, which protects one from frying yourself, from too much excitation, too much stress, which yang qi causes. Yang qi primarily causes stress. If it goes
Mm.
into your nerves and it goes into your brain, you become stressed. That's it. So yin field, which is based on the body, grounds it, pulls it back down, so it doesn't overstimulate the nervous system.
I have a question.
Then, yes, please.
You may be about to go into it, but so you were saying that, I mean, what I find interesting is that, is it correct to say that in the Qigong system, excitation and disruption can come from both, let's say, positive or negative triggers or emotions? If something, it could be something like anger or it could be something like overexcitement. And this is like the same type of activation that's
Yeah,
entering your body. So there's no, it
essentially, yeah.
doesn't, yeah. Okay. And
Yeah, yeah,
then
yeah.
you mentioned that once this happens, we can anchor into if the yin field is developed, as this activation occurs, a person can reground themselves in the field or the form of yin.
Well, you see, it's not an action. It will
Right.
reground
It
if
just
it's developed.
returns to yin.
Yes, yeah, yeah. It
Right.
functions like a magnet because that's what yin field is. It's a magnet. It's a form. Yin is
Right.
a form. It's a form of magnetism, which draws the yang in, preventing it from spluttering all over the place, kind of thing.
So my question is,
Making you,
how does
yeah,
it
yeah.
do that? But maybe
Well,
you were about to say that.
how magnets interact. You ever seen like back in the school
Yeah.
days experiments with physics? Did you guys have those when you spread an iron filings over the piece
Yeah,
of
yeah.
paper, put the magnet under, they organized the iron filings, whatever.
I
Yeah, the
see.
same way, the electricity runs around that magnetic, what do you call it, in thermodynamics or whatever, in the electrical engineering, you have a magnetic reel around which the electromotor circulates the electric energy. Similar here, the electric energy is attracted then back to magnetic energy and just
Mm.
gets stored in there. Very, very kind of rudimentary concept. It's sort of pure physics, so to speak, the mechanism
Hmm.
that we have in our body. The problem is that hardly anyone has yin field developed because
Yeah.
people lose it in life. The only thing I think I mentioned last time that has yin field developed is a toddler.
Yeah. Yes.
They have it here full. They move from here. They all sort of grounded around this area. The energy is here. The
Yeah.
more we grow, the more we acquire personality, energy starts getting centered around heart field. Our emotions suddenly become very important. Then we acquire personality and some ideas in our brain, and the concepts become our identity. Energy starts gravitating around the brain and the mind, because that's how you manifest yourself to the world as
Yes.
the intelligent person, as someone with some kind of ideas and narrative they project.
It's so
So the yin
tiring.
field depletes and it's tiring, exactly. And for some reason, we are made to think that that's how we're supposed to function. Like you're supposed to, be smart, project this out to the world. They are very interesting, engaging topics, especially if you're in
Yes.
the field of academia or whatever.
Yes, I can vouch for that. There's a
uh,
constant need for validation in certain fields where it can be very tiring to where your reputation is very important. I mean, I feel like it is important in the world because if we're as we're in the world, but the maintenance of it and the inner validation, I think somehow is not it's like the inner validation is like a greedy like the greedy inner voice that feels like, oh yeah, but I need to know that it's real, you know, this like 100,000 people liked my post, but you know, is that enough or am I enough, you know?
happens because the true refuge is gone at this time. Yeah. All the
Yeah.
energy is pumped elsewhere, and your actual true refuge of your contentment within yourself, of your resting place, is gone. You don't have it. Your magnetic anchor is literally invested into your personality. And personality is a very, very shaky ground for
Yes.
refuge, really. You need to constantly feed it, maintain it, project it, and you feel insecure.
Mm,
Because what happens if you stop doing that? Like,
that's right. Wow, I
I
love
think
this
it's a
concept of
very,
the resting place.
hmm,
What were you going to say? You think it's
yeah,
very,
I think it's a very dodgy place to be when you are fully invested into your personality and the sense of who are you or who you are in the world.
mm,
It's important, but if you can't rest in that, then it's a problem. And you can't because you don't have a ground to stand on. You see, so energetics of rest, or the concept of how that is developed, is, yeah, okay, you find your yin field again, or build it, because you can't find it, you need to build it. It's not something that is there. It was there, but then it's depleted, it is dispersed, it is invested into your sense of self, into life, stresses, hurtful experiences, traumas, whatever, drains it, depletes it, it's gone. So by the end of it, if people doesn't do any cultivation, they don't have any Dantien by the time they are like in their 20s already even. So it needs to be built. That's what Qigong systems are helping people to do. Well, if they are authentic, if they don't just mobilize Qi and use imagination. If the system is authentic, it will help you to reconsolidate, regather the yin field first. They call it, that's what it's called as in Taoism, as the return into a state of a child, not emotionally or mentally, but energetically. Find again that center. You draw those energies back to the Lord Dantien, to the place where you can reside, which doesn't cause any mental proliferation, any emotional activity. The quality which correlates with the lower Dantian area is featureless contentment, like a
Mhm.
state of baseline normality, where you can, there's nothing particularly exciting happens, but you don't need to have anything particularly exciting happening. You can just be, you can just dwell. And that's the baseline, the groundwork for developing further aspects of rest.
Mm.
You see, that's the beginning for opening the RAN channel, if you speak in terms of energetics and Qigong. The scene field, strong in the basis, needs to be built. It's not something that is there.
So I guess like some people might imagine, let's say they show up to a yoga class and the calm space, probably like dimly lit environment where their senses are really, the sensory input is really reduced. Um, and then the instruction from the teacher might be rest your mind, you have nowhere else to be but here, allow yourself to be grounded. What is the key difference between this type of dropping and Qigong exercises to build the Dantien, which I understand we then can rely that it's there as this magnetism of calm, our
Well,
resting
yeah,
place.
calm is a
Yeah.
quality of that that emanates from there eventually. Yeah, Qigong has a particular method of how it's done, and it's not a imagination-based method. You don't have to talk yourself into it. It's actually quite rudimentary. It involves manipulation. There's the center of gravity, particular alignment of the body, use of the hands, the magnetic fields and the palms, which actually then are taken and you actually shape that field, sync that energy, gather it, shape it, do it over and over. Takes a while. The body is organized in a particular way, and usually this kind of work is done as a stood in the Wu-Ji position. I think we have touched upon
Standing. Yeah.
that in one of the
Hmm.
previous talks. And
Hmm.
that's the standing part. And then the seated part, it's because you're already low enough to the ground, to the center of gravity is dropped. You just use the hands to do it. That mind is not doing anything. It's not visualizing yin field gathering. It's not intending in any forceful way. It's just resting, residing there. Because it's very hard for the mind to do, and like I mentioned, because most of us are normally in a fight or flight state, the mind doesn't know how to rest. The mind only knows how to fight or flight or how to escape, which is a form of flight, isn't it? So we teach this quality through the body to the mind. That's why we have bodily method, somatic method, which does not involve your clever fabrication of with your senses or any particular environments, such as dim lit or whatever. But you actually have a bodily method, and the instruction is that application of attention is as neutral as possible. Yeah.
Mhm.
So then when the somatically, tangibly, you start perceiving chi sinking, chi dropping from normal centers of activation in the head and the heart to here. Okay, the feedback to the mind is that, oh wow, I'm actually quite chill now, I'm quite calm. It feels nice. It feels nice in comparison to the state of being in the fight or flight. But you
Mhm.
maybe are still in the state of fight or flight, only lessened. So, okay, now you have a feedback from the body into the mind, so you can learn from the state of your body what it is to be at rest. Then, the more you do it, this bodily method, the more you learn. And then you can actually enhance this practice with the use of the mind by means of dropping the mind into that state of rest. And that's something you can't really teach to people. Like you can't just tell them, okay, relax your mind or rest your mind. Like, huh? So that's why a lot of the scene in the yoga or Qigong uses visualization. Imagine yourself in a nice forest with the, flowing water and whatever. Try to chill them down. So that to zone them out of their habitual frequency of stress. But that's wrong as well, because it's still a form of activity, a form of mental doing. As long as there is doing, even if it's nice, still doing. It's not a
Mhm.
rest.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm saying it's quite difficult because we don't quite know how it is to rest the mind. So we use the body method first to learn from that. Then slow, gradually we start to get it. How is it to step back with the focus? Step back enough so that you are toned down, but not zoned out, you know? Because if you step back more, you'll end up in a space of daydreaming,
Mm. In
lost in,
a deep dream on your
yeah,
way
yeah, yeah.
to sleep.
Or you will fall asleep, yeah. Uh, and you keep on dreaming, which is also a stress state because mind still keeps on acting and producing dream shapes. So people hardly ever rest, actually. Uh, they think and act in the daytime and they dream in the nighttime. They wake up like, oh, what a bummer, another day. So we learn how it is that area of stepping back, dropping in, the mind, the state of attention doesn't produce thoughts, patterns, visions, whatever. You don't force it into this state, you just step back and use the somatic object, that yin field to, and there's the second use of that field. First one is to ground in the excess, and the second one is to absorb into. We use the tangibility of the yin
What was the
field
first
to
one, sorry?
serve to anchor any excess of the yang qi, which I spoke about. So it
Anchor the
doesn't
excess. Yes.
uh, doesn't fire up into the brain.
Hmm.
But the second use is to serve as an object to absorb into, to use the gravity of the yin field, its magnetism, to actually draw attention inwards so that it becomes more. And the more you build it, the more yin chi is there, the more tangible the object becomes, and it's hard to miss. And it starts to actually distract you from the habitual objects, which are your thoughts and mental states and perceptions and memories and yourself, story, whatever. Uh,
When I have been practicing, I really relate to this attentive state as a state of listening. So I think it helps to just make that connection between how I might be mindfully listening to someone in a conversation, or I try to mindfully listen. Like I'm not putting anything into the conversation. I'm not trying to think about my next answer. I'm not trying to, imagine stories where I can relate to the person. I'm just actually listening to the person and trying to absorb what's being said to me. So I guess that concept really, I mean, is that a good way of thinking about this state of attention when we're doing the practice? Like as I observe the object, because I think observing, even observing the mind is also can be maybe quite challenging for people who start meditation, but then people who start Qigong to observe the resting place. It could be even like what is that? You know, but I think when I think about it as listening, as simply just being there and listening to whatever is coming, to whatever is arising in my body, it sort of makes it a bit more easy for me to to do, and then to notice things happening, but to not be carried away with that. Is that a good way of doing it?
Yeah, you actually nailed it pretty much. Here is the way to do it. One of the words in Chinese terminology for Qigong is tin or tin jin, which means literally to listen with your ears.
Oh, right.
It is named so deliberately because other sense faculties not really reliable, you know, because they're prone to distortions to a great degree. Well, unless someone has a, condition whereby one experiences auditory hallucinations, listening is also then problematic. But normally, if you get the person to observe something, they will start producing images in relation to the area of the body they're observing. Well, unless they're taught not to. Or if you get them to feel something, okay, there is also a chance that they may get lost in the proliferation of feelings of the psychosomatic phenomena on the inside. So feeling
Mm.
is also problematic in that
Mhm.
regard. Perceive, okay, you can again go onto the dodgy road with perception, getting into all the modes of distortion that your mind already has inbuilt into it, because everyone's mind function in accordance with certain filters that they perceive things through. So there is
Mm.
no such thing as pure perception. Any perception is distorted. But listening is a bit more neutral. Like
Mm.
if you listen to the body, like literally with your ears, it's less prone to fabrication phenomenon. So that's why they say listen in Qigong. Not
Mm.
observe, don't notice. Uh,
Mm.
Actually, my Vipassana teacher used to use the word to note
Mm.
things. But anyway, I think it's quite skillful too. It's kind of neutral as well. But it's a very good point that, yeah, it's very akin to how you listen to another person. And don't you notice that actually not many people, well, actually more these days, should be so disparaging. People do start to get better at it, start to listen or
You
to
think
be able to
so?
listen others more. Well, maybe it's my friends. Actually, it's quite hard and for many people to listen to the other person. Again, the filters that you haven't built in your mind are in the way before you have actually got what the other person said. It has passed through your filters, through your preconceived database of memories, uh, the distortions on how you see the world. And then you
Mm.
fabricate your own answer, whatever. Even sometimes before the other person finished their line of thought, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uh, and very similar thing happens when people interact with their bodies
Mm.
from the same mentality. Whatever phenomena they experience in the body then is passed through the filters of their preconceived ideas, their filters, and then they form the train of thought, proliferating from the root of that particular sensation or phenomena that took place on the level of the body. And Allah, you are on the joyride of mental proliferation. You lost the body, you lost
What
your
a fun
object.
ride. You're gone.
Yeah, people live like that their whole lives.
Yes.
So that's the problem. That as long as the mind has gone down that route, it's no longer resting. It's again lost in activity, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why meditation can be so challenging for people when they start. And that's why Qigong in systems such as Chuan Zhen is used as the bridge before you start any meditation. So you learn how to ground your attention in the object of the body without causing any proliferation of the mind. It's difficult. That's what I'm
Mm,
trying very much to say, that
right.
it's not easy. To rest inside is not an easy task, and that's why hardly anyone knows how to or can do it, because it requires a specific deliberate training um, to do.
Mm. So if we just talk about the Ren channel, and I'm not really sure about or could you talk a little bit more a bit about the connection between the parasympathetic nervous system and the Ren channel? And despite the difficulties of practice, yeah, perhaps you could, you know, maybe you could talk a little bit about the stages of the development of, is it development of the Ren channel? Oh no, it's development of the Dantien that is connected with the Ren channel.
Yeah, then TN development is the first stage of red channel opening. You know.
Mm,
So start there. Cool. Yeah, they can, form this magnetic field in the base of the body, and that gives us something to work with. It grounds the excess and serves as an object to absorb into. And when it is there, which takes about 3 years to develop, to build NTN, so it has a capacity to store the electric energy.
mhm,
And then we need to fill it up. So it needs to fill with Yanqi.
mm,
And it needs to go for a while until it's full enough so it is starting to push out, start to fill the body to the extent that body becomes inflated. Not in a way that one gets fat. That would be imbalance to the digestive system, but in a way that it is buoyant, that it is quite taut, like a drum skin. It expands in all directions because there is this kind of inner pressure that pushes out. When that happens, it serves as a even greater object to absorb the attention in. Once the attention can rest there, that object, it can generate more energy. Now, the Dantien field needs to be quite strong so that the energy one generates, again, doesn't shoot up and fry one. But here it becomes tricky because to feel Dantien to that extent is kind of possible through the method, through standing, use of the hands, somatic modality, some kind of neutral state of mind. But beyond that, one actually needs to cultivate the self a little bit, cultivate the mind, because a certain mental quality is needed to build it further. And that mental quality is irrelevance to start with. Irrelevance of the things that are worldly, you know. On a very kind of basic level, the person who wants to go deeper into this practice cannot be very, very agitated by the state of political situation in where they live, for example, uh, or can have a strong opinion about this issue or that issue. Preferences as such need to be eased off and eventually abandoned so that things that are otherwise concerning and may cause a heated argument between worldly people are irrelevant. When that is the case, Chi builds further because the attachments and identifications and preferences are no longer pulling one out, pulling one outside. Then that's a very superficial level, isn't it? Then it goes further to the things which are problematic within oneself, the things that one has an issue about within oneself. Uh, Whatever real or perceived inadequacy there is in one's character, in oneself, in one's makeup. Because that, as soon as it's touched upon when one goes inside, will cause again uh, emotional reaction, mental proliferation, and boom, one is back into the do channel type of functioning. if one has some kind of self-loathing or lack of self-esteem or things like self-loathing, self-aversion of any kind, lower self-esteem, self-reproach. Obviously, if there are tangible reasons why one has that, such as guilty conscience and something one does that one can stop, well, it needs to be stopped. But if there are some other nagging issues, like what one think one should be or should do, or how to deal with these or those issues, well, this needs to be dealt with. However, this is a key difference here now between Qigong mode of self-work and the psychology mode of self-work. You know that within Western approaches to psyche, psycho, whatever, it all starts with psychoanalysis really, that we are to, analyze, look into the root issues of our symptoms and unlock them, unravel, and get to the causes until it is processed, as it is said. Within Qigong as a modality, that's not the case. You see, because the more you again go into the route of proliferating or thinking over these or those perceived or actual inner issues having to do with sense of inadequacy or whatever, the more you again strengthen the acquired identity and strengthen that mode of functioning, which has to do with do channel, which has to do with activity of the mind. So again, that's contrary to rest. So the method which is advised within Qigong systems is that when one goes inside and encounters those issues having to do with self, again, one develops attention and neutrality in regards to those issues by just looking at them, by just being with them, until those things inside are accepted. Once they are accepted, they are no longer an issue which impinges upon your mind, upon your psyche. Once they are accepted, they're integrated. They're no longer a form of reference to generate more sense of self around. They are what they are. They are accepted. When they are accepted, this inner gimmicks, whatever they are, neurosis, anything that causes agitation or self-reproach, they no longer consume chi, so chi can build more. When chi builds more, it feels the body more. It hits the higher centers. And the more it goes up, the more it feels the body, the more centers it hits, and the more blockages it hits. So the blockages of self, which I've spoken about just now, having to do with any kind of self-worth or lack of therein, or sense of inadequacy. That's the blockage associated with the middle of the body, the solar plexus area. This area is opened when one sees the truth of phenomena. The truth of phenomena, as we know from practice of Dhamma, is that they are inconstant. They are dependently arisen, and they are not self. But as long as one is in the do channel, in a state of fight or flight, whatever phenomena one experiences on the inside, they are the self. Because one does not have a distance between that phenomena and themselves. They don't have a place of rest. So whatever arises is identified with. But when there is a place of rest, when there is a buffer field, in case of Qigong, where one can rest, okay, one can actually have some distance away from phenomena and can see that phenomena is one thing, and one, as the one who listens, is another thing. And so on this basis, one can start accepting and thereby integrating phenomena and seeing that the phenomena which have been perceived prior as something that caused one sense of inadequacy is actually transient. So that's the blockage which leads further, which when it's overcome, it leads further into opening of the REM channel. It was a probably long-winded way of explaining.
Mm.
And go
I
further.
see. Oh, yeah.
But I think we can stop here because that's probably good enough in terms of rest. Because when one has filled the body to such an extent and overcome that blockage and it carries on opening further and filling up, right, someone who has that can rest. Someone who has developed that can rest. As soon as they bring the mind inside, it actually stays there. It doesn't cause proliferation anymore, doesn't produce more of the sense of self-identity. It actually just stays inside, rests, and more energy is produced. Full REM channel opening goes a bit further, but I think that's good enough to stop at in terms of our discussion so far. And I would love to hear what reflections you might have.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a great description of how the role of the mind and the qualities that need to be progressively developed as we work with the body in order to progressively open the REN channel to properly cultivate true rest and deep rest. I couldn't help but thinking while you were speaking of so many intersections with Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist psychology. I mean, when you were talking first about this quality of irrelevance, this sense of kind of a renunciation of worldly concerns, there's a whole area in Buddhist psychology connected with renunciation called the eight worldly concerns, which are, profit and gain or loss, fame and insignificance, praise and blame, happiness and suffering. So, these are two, like they're described as these opposites, but they're actually on the same spectrum. If we take praise and blame, for example, your response to praise and your response to blame, and, as a practitioner or as a meditator, or as a renunciant, you cultivate a sense of, yeah, sometimes people like what I have to say, and sometimes people think what I have to say is irrelevant and they actually have nothing to learn from what I have to say. And whichever that is, whatever review I get, I have a state of equanimity. And I also, not only is my response in this equanimous response, I also have a sense of not being concerned with whether I get praised or blamed or whether people like or dislike what I have to say. So I guess renunciation, although it seems like in this arcane word from, a different age, it's actually the beginning of noticing that we need to do something about about our situation, because you wake up and you think, wow, I can't keep living like this. I have to take action. And I know a lot of people who wake up and it's not that they're having so-called breakdowns, but they are in a constant state of low to medium level anxiety. And they know within themselves that it is a kind of a mild crisis where they know they need to act because they're being triggered and activated by so many things in the world, and they know something needs to change and they don't really know what. And I guess that is the beginning of change, is like the awareness of something needs to change. So and so yeah, just when you were talking about this term irrelevance, which I really thought was so funny, because in my mind, like this translation from the Chinese word for irrelevance, it just reminds me of some of the Chinese restaurants in my neighborhood, the way that the service staff operate. They really have this sense of irrelevance, like about whether their service is, A grade or not. They were just like, well, you're in the restaurant, so that's what you're gonna get. And it's, for me, it just rung true, like
That's wonderful.
that attitude. I hope it's not racist, but I mean, I just noticed it in my local local dim sum and noodle restaurants in my hood. And
That's
anyways,
great. Yeah. I just gonna intervene a little bit. One of my teachers calls this not only an irrelevance or also apathy.
right.
They're apathetic about whether you like their service or not. And in the same way, as a practitioner of Qigong, you should be apathetic about who won the US election or whatever.
That's
But if
right.
you mention this topic, it will trigger many, many people. And you know
Yes.
what? They will struggle building Dantien if they engage with it.
Right.
Because for them, world is very relevant and very important. And
Yes.
perhaps on some level it is, but when you are trying to cultivate calm,
Yeah.
and one should understand that this is where all these practices come from the monastic discipline. They cultivate calm, disregarding the world.
That's right.
And
I think, yeah.
unfortunately, if you are living in the world, you have to develop that attitude to the world that it is actually apathetically irrelevant to you.
Yes. I think there is a sense of, I mean, the way that I've been thinking about it, and I would be interested to hear like how others also deal with it. I mean, it is a topic of interest for me because you do have this sense of, wow, there are so many issues there. Then you hear about things happening and the news brings up so much confusion as well. So it's like we're in the world. So there is this sense of, yes, I have to create a sense of apathy or, an attitude of irrelevance. But then that brings us to the second quality that is so closely connected, I think, with the first quality around what you mentioned, like the self-work, like you're working on yourself, which is, I feel that this is also from at least the Eastern philosophy perspectives something and the embodied practices, like having this embodied practice that's connected with the philosophy, is that there are these mundane concerns, not just mundane, but the worldly concerns, like all the things that are happening external to ourselves. But then you have to also work with yourself, and then there is a link there. I mean, I don't think you explicitly spoke about the link, but I think for me that like what I thought about was, in terms of acceptance and integration. I really thought about how I think, particularly in the West, there's so much that needs to come from self-compassion and working with yourself and accepting everything about yourself in order to clear these blockages within yourself so that you can, like, once you have that part of you, once you can start to not just look at yourself in a gentle way, that is really where you can begin the workshop.
Yes.
And so I do feel that these are connected so that it's not that you don't care about the world because we're all in the world together, but it's that for me, I look at that as a personal sense of responsibility. Like, okay, I'm not turning away from the world. It's just that I'm not triggered by the world. And then I can look at myself and start working on myself. I need to be able to do this work through myself if I'm going to make any lasting change. I don't think all philosophical arguments work in that way, but certainly from Buddhism and also from the Qigong perspective, it's about taking that onus on yourself, right? That's like such a strong motivation. I mean, I think I've also mentioned this before. It's like, parents who want their children to be more mindful, to be more calm, to be less hyperactive, and then they often look for places that they can take their kids to teach them. But really, like, it's about training ourselves so that we can model that to our friends and our family. That is really such a powerful way of doing things. And that is, I think, the part of the reason why I was personally so attracted to the internal arts is because not only do I have a sense of already be working with the body, but it sort of mm, it sort of really does act as this bridge to the deeper understanding of concepts from a spiritual practice. Have you found this?
Yes, absolutely. To me, these arts are the precise embodiment of spiritual practice. Mm. But that could be a talk for another time, the
Yeah.
connection of energetic arts and spiritual practice.
Yeah, that would be
I think
great.
we already touched on these topics a little bit, but there is, of course, more to cover. Like
Yeah.
Buddhism, to my view, I think, as I know, has lost the energetic perspective, which is a great shame, because that's where Buddhism ended up in a mental work and philosophy and sometimes psychology, and that became a basis for developing calm and discrimination, which is why actually people who have calm, that level of calm which we just discussed, based on the seeing the truth with regards to one's self, they're considered to be quite high level. But actually, like you said yourself, that's just the beginning of the path. That's just
Mm.
the place to start when you have this calm, you
Hmm.
know, from where you can then develop actual absorption, samadhi, jhana, from where you can properly practice vipassana and seeing clearly the nature of reality. The level of calm, which has to do with the truth in regards to who you are, one's acquired self, is the basis for it. You know, that ability to rest based on the energy has field up to this level. The solar plexus might be a little bit higher. It's the basis. Then there goes further work. But usually people,
Sorry,
because
could
their
you repeat
perspective
that
has been
again?
lost, from
When
where?
you just said then there's something of work because the audio just glitched.
Yeah, I think because the perspective that the energy arts give has been lost in the practice of Buddhism, people who develop calm on the basis of seeing the truth of their self are considered to be quite high level. But in actual fact, that's only the beginning of the practice of the path. That's the basis from where the further absorptions can be developed. Correct realization of the truth of the reality can be gained. But because the energy cultivation is not focused upon a majority of Buddhism, from what I can say, especially the West, it's mostly the intellectual work and some psychological working through. It's very hard to see to find people who actually gone beyond level of calm. That's
Mm.
my opinion and observation. I've been through Buddhism for quite a while.
Mm.
People who are
Yeah.
actually profound, they have a basis in jhana, and that's the uh, higher than calm. It's the ultimate form of rest. I think last time you asked me what is the actual definition of rest. Well, it's jhana. It's the cessation of activity of the mind and body where energy builds and builds and builds and develops to a great extent, which then can be used to contemplate the truth in regards to
Mm.
reality. Uh, but that's not something I want to talk about now.
Hmm. Yes, I do feel that listening to you that I do feel that I mean, sorry, I understand that people who have jhana,
Yeah, Sanskrit word is dhyana,
dhyana.
Pali word is jhana,
People who have
Japanese word is zen. Anyway,
So people who have this Zen-like calm state, it's not like they're not engaged in the world. They're fully engaged in the world. It's not like they've completely retreated into a cave. In fact, it's that they've become more clear, and they're able to tell us about about this state. I think like because I think that also like people might think, oh yeah, but if I cultivate myself so that I'm just like, resting and resting, like what do I just lose my personality or something? You know? Like do I just become so calm that I become a doormat that like I don't care anymore about anything? And I think it's like not like that at all. I think that I mean, I guess I'm just repeating what we've already said is that when through these arts and through through our ongoing work to through creating our resting place. I mean, that was so beautiful the way you phrased it. Like, yes, I want to cultivate my own resting place. I want to cultivate a place where I can anchor myself that's not external to myself. And I'm responsible for creating that within myself. That for me gives me a workshop where I can actually deal with myself. I mean, forget about completely opening the Ren channel. Maybe that will never happen, right? But up until that stage, like if I know that, I mean, it's not going to happen if I never start ever. So I think it's better to continue on this path of like incremental development. And in that process, I think we do get glimpses of what rest can actually be and what deep rest. I'm sure you can speak to that a little bit.
Oh, well, I think it's been said enough, and you have summarized it very nicely. Yeah, I do agree with you that people who have developed profound states of rest, which is jhana, are not at all docile. They are actually full of energy and a great source of merit for the world. They're very engaged and concerned, because that's how you should be when you have plenty of energy. But it's not a manic energy that just runs all over the joint. And it's
Yeah.
not the energy of a CEO executive, which actually runs from running their empire or whatever. And as soon as the empire collapses, their energy is also collapsing, as usually is their health as well. Energy which comes from the cultivation doesn't run out if your worldly basis of support are gone, because it's not dependent on it. You see, that's a big difference. I think it's repeated many times in the suttas that one is developing mindfulness to the extent of not relying on anything in the world. And through developing mindfulness, one develops absorption. Through absorption, one develops energy and rest, and creates this foundation for awakening, for realizing truth.
I think that's a fantastic way to end our conversation today. Yeah, I've
Thank you,
so
Kristina.
enjoyed. Thank you, Evgeny. I've really enjoyed this conversation about rest and how something that we often don't even allow ourselves um, to just engage with on a worldly level, how it can be so profound and connect us with these elevated parts of ourselves that remain closed as we, if unless we actively invest ourselves in them.
Yeah, yeah, it needs to be done in the correct way.
Okay, well, until next time,
Hmm,
enjoy your week.
indeed.